When widower Evan Reyes inherited his grandfather's rotting farmhouse, the entire town laughed behind his back. To them it was poetic irony, life's final cruel joke on a man already broken. A single father working double shifts at the local diner, scraping pennies to keep his 9-year-old son fed, suddenly saddled with a collapsing barn and 15 acres of forgotten land. His in-laws called it junk. The bank called it foreclosure waiting to happen. And yet, when Evan stood before the sagging roof and splintered porch, he didn't see ruin. He saw defiance. The same kind his grandfather once carried in his bones. That house had stood through a century of storms. Maybe, just maybe, it could stand through this one too. Inside, dust layered every surface like a burial shroud, and cobwebs hung like curtains across doorways. The air smelled of earth and memory. It was easy to laugh, to walk away, but something inside Evan whispered, "Stay." Because beneath that decay, beneath the silence of generations, something was waiting for him. Something Antonio Reyes had left behind. He couldn't explain it then, but as the wind creaked through broken shutters, Evan felt the first pulse of destiny stirring under the floorboards. The kind of inheritance that changes everything, not because of what it's worth, but because of what it demands. Morning in their apartment was a routine of quiet despair, the kind that comes not from tragedy, but from the slow grind of surviving it. The coffee maker wheezed to life, like an old friend who'd seen too much, while sunlight crawled through blinds onto a countertop littered with overdue bills. "Dad, my shoes don't fit anymore," Miguel said, holding up sneakers held together by stubbornness and tape. Evan smiled, though his chest ached. "We'll figure something out, Mojo." They both knew that meant not this week. Ever since Maria's death, life had been one long compromise. Every paycheck eaten alive by debt, every dream postponed for survival. His in-laws, Dolores and Carlos, offered help. Money, private school for Miguel, a future. But the fine print was always the same. Give them custody. They said Evan was holding his son back out of pride. But pride had nothing to do with it. It was promise. Maria's last words had been clear. Don't let them take him. So when the lawyer's letter came, an inheritance, a farmhouse no one wanted, Evan made a choice. It didn't matter that the walls were cracked or that the roof might cave in. What mattered was this. It was his, theirs, a place to start over. What Evan didn't know was that inside that decaying home lay a secret his grandfather had hidden from the world. A secret powerful enough to save them. Or destroy everything he loved trying. The farmhouse looked even worse up close. Windows like hollow eyes, porch steps ready to give way, and fields tangled with weeds taller than Miguel. "It's huge," Miguel whispered, awed. "It's falling down," Evan replied, though not with conviction. They explored carefully, footsteps echoing through empty rooms that still carried the ghost of laughter from generations past. In what had been Antonio's workshop, tools hung neatly, untouched for decades. The precision spoke of a man who never stopped building, never stopped believing in something larger than himself. Upstairs, Miguel found it first. A loose panel behind peeling wallpaper, no larger than a child's door. "Dad, come look," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. Inside the wall was a compartment, sealed, protected from time. Inside that, oil-wrapped papers, thick bundles of diagrams, equations, journal entries, all written in Antonio's sharp, deliberate hand. Evan unrolled one page. It was dated 1967 and titled Perpetual Energy Conversion System. Beneath it, notes about electromagnetic resonance, field harnessing, and something about household applications. It didn't make sense, not to a diner cook. But one thing was clear. Antonio hadn't been a farmer who tinkered for fun. He'd been an inventor, and a brilliant one. That night, as wind howled through cracked windows, Evan sat surrounded by his grandfather's hidden archive, realizing this wasn't an accident. Antonio had left those blueprints for a reason. And maybe, just maybe, that reason had finally arrived. The next morning, Evan brought Miguel to the workshop. Dust hung thick in the air, sunlight cutting through it like gold. On the bench sat a machine the size of a toolbox, covered in a brittle top. Its copper coils gleamed faintly beneath the grime. "Do you think it still works?" Miguel asked. Evan hesitated. Only one way to find out. He flipped the switch. Nothing, and then a hum, low at first, then steady. Lights blinked to life, and a small bulb on the table glowed warm and steady. No cords, no battery. Power from thin air. Miguel gasped. "Dad, where's it coming from?" Evan checked every wire, every outlet. There was nothing, just the impossible, glowing quietly between them. In that moment, the farmhouse changed. It wasn't a ruin, it was a vault. A time capsule for a miracle the world had forgotten. Evan stayed up all night reading Antonio's notes, learning how corporations had tried to buy his work, how he'd hidden it to protect its purpose. Clean, free energy for every family. By dawn, Evan understood the truth. His grandfather hadn't left him a burden. He'd left him a revolution. But revolutions draw enemies. And outside, headlights were already cutting through the fog, bringing men with offers and threats. The white truck rolled up before noon, its tires grinding gravel like teeth. Two men stepped out, one local builder, the other slick, sharp, and smiling too wide. "Mr. Reyes, we represent Meridian Development," the younger man said. "We're prepared to offer $200,000 for your property. $200,000 for a condemned house." "Too much money, too fast?" Evan asked why. The man said words like residential potential and economic opportunity, but his eyes kept drifting toward the workshop. By the next week, strangers began showing up, inspectors with clipboards, county letters threatening fines, and then the final blow. Robert Martinez himself, Miguel's great-grandfather by marriage, wealthy, ruthless, the man who'd built his empire by buying small and crushing competition. And he wasn't here for family. He was here for Antonio's secrets. "Sell it, Evan," Martinez said coldly, "before I make you regret not doing it." That night the farmhouse felt smaller, the air tighter. Miguel sat by the fire, watching his father pace. "Dad," he whispered. Great-grandfather hid his inventions from bad people. "Maybe these are the bad people." Evan stopped. The boy was right. Antonio had hidden his genius for a reason, and now the same greed that once silenced him was back to finish the job. When Sarah Chen from Miguel's school heard their story, she brought her brother David, a patent lawyer with a reputation for fighting giants. Together they dug through archives, uncovering the truth. Antonio had filed patents through a shell company called Reyes Innovations. They'd been acquired in 1974 by Progressive Energy Solutions, a front owned by none other than Robert Martinez. For 50 years, Martinez had buried Antonio's work and licensed pieces of it to energy companies, making over $120 million from stolen technology. But buried in those contracts was a fatal mistake, a reversion clause. If the inventions weren't commercialized within 25 years, they'd return to Antonio's heirs. The deadline had expired 24 years ago. The patents legally belonged to Evan and Miguel. Martinez Holdings wasn't just greedy, it was criminal. So they filed suit. The case tore open the quiet town like a storm. Reporters came, corporate lawyers descended, and in the center stood a father, his son, and the legacy of a man who believed power should belong to the people. The courtroom battle lasted months, lies, threats, delays. But when the moment came, David's words echoed through history. Innovation belongs to innovators, not those who bury it. The courthouse was silent as Judge Morrison read her ruling. Martinez Holdings, she said, acquired the Reyes patents in bad faith and suppressed their use for profit. Her gavel fell like thunder. All intellectual property reverts immediately to Evan and Miguel Reyes. Furthermore, Martinez Holdings shall pay restitution of $127 million. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but Evan didn't hear them. He felt Miguel's small hand find his, steady and certain. 50 years of silence had just ended. Antonio's dream, energy for every home, power for every family, was alive again. Outside, the sun burned through gray clouds as they walked down the courthouse steps. Evan looked up, whispering to the wind, "We did it, Grandpa." It wasn't just about money. It was about truth. It was about restoring a name that had been stolen and proving that integrity could still win against corruption. That night, back in the farmhouse that started it all, Miguel turned on the prototype. The same bulb flickered to life again, glowing brighter than ever. For the first time, it wasn't just light. It was justice. 6 months later, the Reyes farmhouse wasn't a ruin. It was a beacon. Solar panels crowned its roof. Antonio's generators hummed softly in the workshop, and families lined up across the country to see the house that created light from nothing. The Reyes Foundation built its first factory in Tennessee, producing affordable home power units, machines that could free families from electric bills forever. News crews called it the inheritance revolution. Miguel called it great-grandpa's dream. Evan didn't care for the titles. He only cared for mornings like this. Sunlight spilling through clean windows, laughter echoing down hallways once filled with ghosts. Sarah Chen, now part of their family, read emails from families whose lives had changed. Elderly couples, single parents, veterans who could finally afford warmth in winter. "We're just getting started," Evan said, looking out at the horizon. Miguel nodded, holding 2 mugs of cocoa, their nightly ritual. "Dad, do you think Great-Grandpa knew this would happen?" "I think he hoped," Evan said softly. Outside, the lights of their workshop glowed against the night sky, powered by a dream no corporation could kill. "And now," he added, turning to his son, "it's our turn to keep it alive. If this story lit something inside you, if you believe ordinary people can change everything, share this story, drop a like and subscribe. Because some legacies don't just live on, they keep the lights on for the world."